everyone, I'm Dr. Matt Elmes, Director of New Product Development here at Cannacraft. Welcome to headquarters. Let me show you around. Cannacraft was founded in 2014 around a patient-focused brand, Care by Design. Since then, we've expanded to multiple other brands, like AbsoluteXtracts, our edible line, Satori Chocolates, and Hi-Fi Hops. Let's go check out the bottling line. So here's where the magic happens. Here's the bottling room where we make all our Hi-Fi beverages and keep sodas. Each of these guys right here holds 1,000 gallons of beverage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 gallons of beverages we hold at one time. Here's our new state-of-the-art system. This thing has huge throughput, making thousands of bottles an hour. As a vertically integrated company, we source cannabis plant matter from all over the state, and then extract the oil from that cannabis right here in our lab. That oil ends up in all of our products, whether it be soft gels, droppers, edibles, or your vapes. We do it all right here in the facility. So here's our extraction room, where we have 25 supercritical CO2 extractors running almost 24/7 to provide all the cannabis oil in our products. Let's check in with one of our co-founders who's going to tell you more.
Yeah, so these are our supercritical CO2 extractors. We've just started a new process with these extractors. We reconfigured them and we're able to do really sub-zero extractions with CO2 right now, meaning that we take the temperature all the way down to -30 and then extract the terpenes and cannabinoids at really low temperatures. And so it's really preserving the terpenes. You might even think of it really close to like a live resin that you would get with hydrocarbon extraction. All right, here we are in the infusion lab. As you can see, doing a lot of different things with the chocolates over here for Satori. Over here, we're doing soft gels for Care by Design. We're doing sublingual drops over in the corner. And then we're starting to formulate some of the products over here on this side. Over here, we got the VTA. We're making distillate. You can see the oil's coming down on the inside of the glass. We're separating it. The THC is going to this side. Some of the waste product is going this way. It's chlorophyll and waxes.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for checking out a little bit of what we do here at Cannacraft. There's obviously way too much to see for a virtual tour, so you'll have to come out sometime to get the full experience.
My name is Donald. This is Matt. He is the
Director of Scientific Affairs.
All right. So, Matt, why don't you tell us how you came to come from New York all the way to the West Coast and ended up here at Cannacraft?
Yeah, I have a sort of interesting path into the cannabis industry. I would say it's pretty atypical. I mean, cannabis has been part of my life for a long time. I've been, smoking weed since middle school. Used it fairly regularly. But I started a PhD program at Stony Brook University, where I was working in the Department of Biochemistry. Okay. And I was studying cannabinoids and how we metabolize THC and CBD from all our favorite products. And I had some sort of discoveries in how our liver is actually able to process these compounds. And so, I actually did a lot of cannabis science for my PhD. So that was a really cool, interesting thing. And it led into a postdoc position, which is a typical position after a PhD. It's very research focused, where I was making drugs that modulate our endocannabinoid system. Okay. So if you don't know, THC is interacting with something in our brain called the cannabinoid receptors. THC binds this receptor, activates it, and that's what produces that feeling, that stone feeling we're all so familiar with. So, our bodies make something called endocannabinoids, which is essentially what THC is mimicking. We do have a natural endocannabinoid system to our body. Our body makes cannabinoid compounds. So by raising the levels of our natural endocannabinoids, we can kind of artificially stimulate those cannabinoid receptors. And it really leads to potent anti-pain, anti-inflammatory effects. Okay. So we were making these drugs as a way to combat the opioid epidemic, because we really need non-addictive painkillers. Oh, for sure. Most strong painkillers, just they're addictive or they're kind of weak, like NSAIDs, like Advil or something. Sometimes don't have that real pain-killing kick you need. Right. So that was what I was doing when I got a call one day from this guy, Dennis Hunter, who at the time I had never heard of, but he is the founder of this company I work at now called Cannacraft. He said, hey, your resume came across my desk. You were interested in coming out for an interview for an R&D position here at my company. And so I did a little online research, what Cannacraft was, and learned, wow, these guys are big. Like, they're the biggest guys in California. So I was interested. He flew me out here, chatted with him, met the team. It really just felt like a great fit. So a couple months later, I'm packing up my family and moving from New York, where I was born and raised, out to West Coast. So we're currently in Santa Rosa, California. So we're North Bay.
Nice. So it's definitely, there's some truth to the statement that the cannabis industry is a small world, because I don't know anybody else that their resume just happened to make it 2,000 plus miles all the way to the,
Totally, yeah.
That's crazy to hear that. So that's really cool. It was meant to be.
And part of it, I think the industry is just expanding. It's getting big so rapidly that there's going to be more and more need for positions like mine, where you have these sort of scientists or experts in some other profession, that those skills are really valuable to the modern cannabis industry. Because we're at the stage where we're not operating out of garages like it always has been, kind of historically. It's been sort of black market or kind of small scale operations. But as we scale up, we're getting to these more kind of expertise is needed for these different types of roles. Yeah,
for sure, because that's exactly what I pictured when you said like operating out of a garage. Like that's I've been here my whole life in Sonoma County, and everybody I knew, that's exactly it. They were just doing their own thing, black market, and you don't realize how much science really goes into what you guys are doing. Just in our tour, like when we were walking around before this, I didn't realize like just how the extraction method, how much went into that, how big that facility was, and then just watching the gummies come together, all those things. It's like, I was kind of mind blown. It's the first time I've ever seen it actually in action going. I see it when it hits the shelves, and then I hear how it tastes, and I get to taste it and things like that, but I don't really never got to see it be made. So that was really cool. The thing that I really was interested in hearing about is you guys do hi-fi hops. You also do the Keef Colas, both of my favorite drinks. So
thank you.
How do you guys do that where you can make it taste so good? Because I've had so many of these beverages, and to be honest, they're just not that great.
Right. So there's a lot of challenges. I would say probably especially in the beverage kind of sector. And the real underlying reason behind that is because the vast majority of cannabis beverages out there are using something called Emulsion Technologies. Because you may be aware, I don't know, but like CBD, THC, and cannabinoids in general, they're what's called lipophilic. So they like fats, they hate water.
Okay.
So if you mix THC into a glass of water, it's going to separate out and form an oil on the surface. So how do you make a cannabis beverage, right? Because it is all based in water, right?
Yeah.
So an emulsion is essentially a way we can trick the THC molecules to staying stable in a beverage solution for a long time. What they are is essentially very tiny microscopic balls. They're about 200 nanometers in diameter. They're bubbles of oil that we kind of put the THC in there, and these bubbles stay stable and they just float around inside that beverage. However, to make those bubbles, we need something called surfactants, which are essentially soaps. Very tiny amount, but they tend to taste very bitter.
Okay.
So there are a lot of ways that we here are doing like kind of R&D work and trying to get a better tasting emulsion and emulsions with better characteristics. We want fast acting effects. We kind of want to differentiate from a typical edible that you'll feel effect maybe in an hour, and you'll feel it for 2 hours to 10 hours. Who knows? Everyone's different, but it's a long time. You're in for the ride, and there's not much you can do. I think a big goal with hi-fi was to create a more sessionable, beer-like beverage, because with a hi-fi you'll feel that effect in 10 or 15 minutes, because that emulsion process actually helps us uptake more of the cannabinoids and helps uptake faster.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you can get this sort of sessionability similar to alcohol, where you'll feel that effect in 15 minutes. 2 hours later, you're back down, you feel back to normal.
Yeah. I think that's why I like it so much, because it is that, like, you drink it 15, 20 minutes later, you're feeling it, but you're not going to be high for hours and hours.
Right.
And that's what I know a lot of people steer away from edibles for that reason, and that's why I did for a long time. you know, because I couldn't sometimes you just can't afford to be high for 6-7 hours, and everybody's body's so different and how it metabolizes. So it's,
and people get in situations where like, it's been an hour, I don't feel anything, let me take another of these brownies, and then they are, you know, basically tripping balls for 6 hours. But with the session ability, when you can feel it in 15 minutes, you can kind of know with confidence that I'm ready for another dose, or I'm not, I want to hold off. You kind of get that effect, and you can gauge how you're feeling and redose appropriately as you see fit.
Yeah, no, I think it's great because, you know, like I was telling you before, I've had them sit in my fridge for a couple months at a time, just forgot about them, whatever, and go to get it, and it's just as good as with the day I bought it, you know, fresh. So that's really cool too, that you don't have to worry about it separating, like you were saying. You know, I've had drinks where you actually, like, you could see it on the top, the oil, and so you have to shake it up really good.
Right, and that's part of, that's kind of indicative of a poor formulation, I would say. Like, if you look at our beverage products, if you open a bottle, like you won't be able to see a difference anywhere from the top to the bottom. Right. Because, you know, a poorly formulated emulsion might start rising to the top, might start falling to the bottom, might actually fall out of solution and start clumping together. So these are all things that we're really thinking about. And at the same time, we want these good characteristics. We're trying to minimize that bitterness. And, you know, with a drink with hi-fi, you know, there's 0 calories. There's no sugar in these. A lot of competitors and some people, their solution is just hit it with a whole bunch of sugar to mask that bitterness. But I want to actually reduce that bitterness without necessarily just hiding it under other flavors. And that's kind of essential to hi-fi, where, you know, there's no sugar, no calories, so we're not able to hide it with a whole bunch of sugar. We need to actually be strategically thinking about how to make these the best they can be.
And that emulsion technology comes really into play, I think, more with the mocktails, the lemonades and stuff, because that is designed to have, like, it has that little dosing cap in there. And how do you ensure that every time someone fills that up, it's 10 milligrams or the 5 milligrams that they're looking for? So that's huge with those. I actually really enjoy those. So you guys also do Satori Chocolates, which I really like these blueberries right here. Those are probably my favorites. But tell us a little bit about those, because I saw, like, how you were telling me something about how the chocolate has to be so evenly coated and things like that. So, I mean, how do you guys do that?
So, yeah, a lot of people kind of outside the industry or outside the manufacturer don't realize there's a lot of, like, compliance regulations that we have to deal with. And part of that is, you know, we need to be able to say that each piece of this is, you know, 3 milligrams of THC or whatever it is, you know? And, you know, the challenge here, because, you know, obviously we're infusing the chocolate and we're covering a natural product like a fruit, a blueberry, strawberry, almonds, whatever. But you'll notice if you look in the California dispensary market, I don't know if there's anybody else other than Satori that's actually using real fruits.
I don't think so.
Because there's a lot of challenges involved. There's natural size variance. Now, if we have a bigger strawberry, so you get more chocolate on it, it's going to be higher potency than a small strawberry. So we have to be very careful how we're sourcing these ingredients. We need very uniform size. We have, like, processes in place to make sure we have a very even coating of that infused chocolate on the outside. So these are all sort of challenges that we're thinking about as a manufacturer to make a compliant product that has very repeatable dosing for the consumer, so they know what to expect with every bite.
Right, and then even just sourcing the fruit, making sure, like, with the pesticides, and you said something like it takes more to get that than, like, being certified organic, like what you would see at a grocery store.
Right, so a lot of stuff at the grocery store, even the organic stuff, they would not pass our California BCC compliance regulations. Just because cannabis laws are a lot of the times were kind of built around what is safe to inhale, because that's, you know, kind of the traditional way people consume cannabis. But there's a big difference between the safe levels to inhale something and the safe levels to eat it. And if you actually were to put a random fruit or vegetable you picked up at the grocery store through our compliance testing, I would bet money that it would not pass compliance. It'll have too much heavy metal, it'll have too much pesticide. So these are challenges too, because you know, we actually source our strawberries from Italy, for example, because we were having trouble finding a U.S. strawberry grower that didn't use pesticides that we would get by our regulations. And we needed just that factor plus the uniform size. So there's a special species of strawberry, very uniform size, no pesticides used. So and it's worthwhile to get them from Italy because they were the best one for the product.
Damn, that's a long way. That's a long ways to go. Like, how do you even find a company like? How do you go that far?
Right. So once you find the right ingredient, we try to stick with it and we make it happen.
Okay. And then we also walked through the gummy production, and I saw some of those being made and formed and things like that. That was a really cool. Is that those How are those made? I know they're vegan, correct? Am I right on that? Okay. I could tell because like the texture is a little bit different in them versus some other gummies that I've had. But I like those because you guys put them in the little container that they're in. It makes it very portable. I really like that. Are these just the 4 flavor or 3 flavors that are available right now, or do you have anything coming out?
Oh, we got plenty more than this.
Okay.
So people don't know, we're Cannacraft's a manufacturer, but we have a lot of brands that we own. So these are just a few from our ABX line of gummies, but we also have a Care by Design line of gummies. We have some new lines of gummies that are going to be coming out soon that I'm not sure I could speak to yet, but you'll be hearing about it very soon.
For sure.
And then we have a lot of really cool new flavors coming out.
Okay.
Speaking of that texture difference that you mentioned, a part of that is so there's 2 main ingredients that I'm aware of, and I'm not like a pastry chef or anything, but there's 2 main ways to make gummies. Either pectin-based or gelatin-based. And the big difference is like the texture of that.
Right.
However, gelatin is not technically vegan. There's actually some animal parts that are found in gelatin. But pectin is a plant product. It is vegan, and that's why we chose pectin for our current gummies. A lot of our consumers, I think especially our Care by Design user base, places a lot of emphasis. We have a lot of vegetarian or vegan consumers. We want to definitely cater to that audience.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because we have a lot of people that come through our dispensary and they want to know, like, what do you have that's vegan? And then they'll really put you to the test, and want to know what's in there. So it's nice, it's nice to get that knowledge out there, because I think it'll steer people in that direction, give them another option. Because as of right now, other than these, there really isn't a lot in the vegan. Each company has like their one little flavor here and there. But it's nice to have a good variety.
Right.
And then I really like these because I'm a microdoser. I like to, start my day off 5 milligrams, and then throughout the day and maybe another 5 or 2 or whatever, just kind of maintain like all through the day, mostly for pain relief. And I like the Satori mints because you get that every time, and your breath smells good too. So it's like, it's great. So with getting to like Care by Design and like what you guys have, there's the pain relief. You guys also have tinctures, gel caps. I'm just trying to remember all the things because there's so many. You mentioned the gummies. What is it like? What would steer a customer? Where would you steer a customer when it comes to like versus like a vape cart, a gel cap, a tincture? What is the science behind that? Because everybody wants to know, like, why should I try a tincture? Why should I?
Yeah, and I try to probe like what they're looking for out of the product, right? Because I think they all have sort of different applications. For example, I like the tinctures because of their versatility. You can put it in your beverage or your food. You can just take it. You can hold it sublingually. You can even use it topically, although it won't work quite as well as our actual topicals. Because we actually formulate those with dermal penetration enhancers to help the cannabinoid get deeper into your skin, where the tinctures you get a little bit under your skin, but not quite as much. But you have that option. There's a lot of versatility to tinctures. If you want to take 1/8 of a dose, you could do that. There's like a little, there are markings on that glass dropper inside the bottle, and you can like choose how much to suck up. Or some people just want precise dosing. They don't want to think about it. Our soft gels have the same exact amount of cannabinoid in each one. So they can take 1, they can do 2. It's a precise dosing. They don't need to measure anything out. It's an easy form factor. Vapes, someone probably wants fast effects. Feeling it almost instantly is a really nice perk. Personally, I vape more than any other form factor myself. Just because
me too.
You can just take a little hit. Like I also like the microdose, like you do. Sometimes I just want I just feel a little bit. I don't necessarily want to go get crazy stoned. I just want to feel a little relaxed.
Still got to function.
The vape lets you feel the effects right away. You can kind of anticipate how long it'll last, unlike some edibles. So that just works for me personally. That's just what I prefer.
Yeah, because we get that question almost daily. Somebody will want an 18-to-1. Say, they're used to the vape, and then maybe we're out of it or whatever. So I'm like, okay, we'll try. We have it in all these different other forms that you can try, and some people it's just it's hard to steer them, break their habit, I guess, so to speak.
Right.
I like the gel caps because I take vitamins every morning, so it's easy for me to just pop it, and I know easy, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Just put it and go. The Dart Pod. Let's talk about the Dart Pod, because I think that's my favorite vape. that you guys do, well, actually, just on the market in general, because it's so small, the form factor is great. It's super discreet. And I know, like, is that just something that ABX is only going to be an ABX thing, or have you guys thought about doing like Care by Design pods, like with the 18-to-1s and like all those different,
I think we've thought about it, and I'm not really the gatekeeper on that type of decision. I see a lot of pros and cons to the dart. Like, I also love them. I love how they hit. I think they hit like really well. And also we know exactly the voltages to operate at. Compared to the typical 510 cart, like everyone's got their own battery. Those batteries don't all work the same, right? And it does matter. Like, what voltage these batteries are outputting at is going to affect how that vaporizes. For example, if you were to take like a live resin vape or something that has a very heavy terpene content, terpenes vaporize off a lot more readily than cannabinoids do. So if you're vaping at a high temperature, you might find that a lot of the flavor is actually gone by the time you get to the end of that vape cart. It actually gets a little more potent, but in terms of cannabinoid content, but you lose the flavor and you lose some of those kind of entourage effects from the terpenes. Whereas a vape, like, it's very dialed into a very nice voltage that's like works perfectly for our formulations. Like you said, it's discreet, it's really easy to carry around, and it hits great.
So you mentioned terpenes, and that was a good one because it was just a couple days ago that I learned. I always wondered, like, why do they have to flash freeze to get, like, and I didn't know that when they're harvesting that it was for the terpenes. Like, they literally will evaporate that quickly that you have to freeze it like on site almost.
So the earlier the better, right?
Because
when the plant's alive, it's always making new terpenes, and they're sticking around. As soon as you cut it, it's not really making terpenes anymore. But like I said, terpenes are pretty volatile. I mean, they like to be a gas. They pretty easily turn into a gas state. So as you're drying cannabis, which you kind of necessarily do if you need to do, because if you want to smoke it, you can't really smoke a wet plant. You're going to lose a lot of that terpene content during that drying process. Live resins are basically a more modern technique to maximize the terpenes. Because what's done is, as soon as that plant is harvested, it's either extracted immediately, or it's put in like a very cold freezer where you freeze everything, and it's not thawed until you're actually throwing it into an extractor to get all that oil. So you're actually preserving all that terpene content. You're not allowing it to evaporate off because we're keeping it very cold. And that's like the focus of our Loud and Clear line of vapes. So they're all formulated with live resin. They all have at least 80% THC, and then pretty much we have a lot of terpene content on top of that because we're formulating those with live resin.
So that's what I'm trying to break that old way of thinking from a lot of people. It's like they just go to straight like, oh, I need 90% THC, or I need the highest THC flower you have, and it's there's so many other factors that play into how the effects are going to be, and so trying to get them to see like the terpenes do play a factor. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, explain that a little bit.
I don't work at a dispensary like you do, but I even know this, that the average customer comes in, they want the most THC for the least money they could spend. Which is, in my opinion, like a really bad way to dose cannabis, or not the best way, I should say. Not necessarily a bad way. But like, personally, I prefer like a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD. I don't care if it's 30% THC plant, like flower. I'd rather have 15% THC, 15% CBD, and have that nice mix. You'll get a much better feel, like kind of better effects from like not just taking THC by itself. There, the entourage is the thing we call it, where the other factors, CBD is kind of modulating how THC is affecting our receptors. It modulates how we feel. It tends to THC actually causes anxiety in some people. If you take TBD along with THC, it tends to reduce that level of anxiety, which is great because that leads to a better experience.
For sure.
And terpenes are also playing supporting roles like that. And that's where people have preferences for certain strains. It's not really the cannabinoid profile that they're necessarily looking for. It's usually the terpene profile, really. Because there's been studies done that you compare these strains over time, and you'll see that an indica and a sativa strain, they actually might have the same amount of THC, same amount of CBD, all that, or THC, CBD. But you go look at the terpene content, and they'll be very different from each other. So, like, if you feel a better effect from one strain over another, I would hazard to guess that it's the terpene profiles that's what's causing that kind of effect that you're looking for.
Because I've smoked 30% flower that I mean, I got high, you know, it
Of
was
course,
cool.
you're gonna get high,
But
yeah.
but then I've also had some that was a lot lower than that, and I felt like, man, it hit me way different, you know. And so that was the only thing that I could attribute it to, is like it's got to be the terpenes and all these other things making me feel this way. But it's also, I like it because you were saying on all your vapes and it's all cannabis derived terpenes, right? It's all, you know.
Yeah, so everything goes in all our vapes, company-wide, or it's 100% cannabis oil. We're not using any additives, no diluents. We don't even use the botanical terpenes like a lot of people do. Our terpenes and our vapes are all from the cannabis plant that we extract here.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. I've had some, there's a market for those ones that do, I don't know if it's like fruit-based terpenes or what, but they like, you know, pineapple, it tastes like a pineapple. And it's cool, you know, it has its place for sure, but I think for the purist, you know, they want to taste as much of the plant as they can.
Yeah, and you know, some of these companies are even adding flavors. They might add a little pineapple flavoring in there.
Yeah.
And you know, I wouldn't want that here, just because you know, inhalable is a direct route into your bloodstream. We don't necessarily have all that data we would want to you know, ensure 100% safety in 100% of people type of thing.
Yeah.
Like generally, yes, it's fairly safe, but you know, from millennia of anecdotal evidence, we know that inhaling cannabis has a relatively high safety profile.
Yeah.
So I personally feel the most comfortable inhaling only stuff that came from that cannabis plant without adding any artificial additive diluents.
Yeah.
Like you might remember the vape scare from I think 2019, like a year and a half ago or so.
Long ago.
That was a big thing, and we figured out that it was from a diluent people were adding called vitamin E acetate. Vitamin E acetate has a very similar viscosity to cannabis oil, so you can dilute your distillate with that product. You can't even really tell. You get, you know, basically increasing your profit margins.
Wow.
But it was found out after, you know, however many thousands of people inhaled it, that some percent of them actually had lung issues after inhaling that vitamin E acetate.
Okay.
So these are all like just reasons, like it's a completely safe compound to put in your skin or eat, but inhaling is like a totally different ballgame to me. And I want to stay, you know, above board with the, you know, what we know to be safe for sure.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of skepticism on the vapes, even now a few years later, because I still get people coming in and just like, whoa, is it safe? You know, is there anything added to this? And you know, and I always reassure them we wouldn't even be allowed to carry it if it wasn't. So that they go, you know, the testing that you guys have to go through to get it from here to there is extreme. It's
right.
a lot.
But to be clear, you know, we have the test for things like heavy metal content, pesticides, but things like an additive, like a flavor additive or diluent, you know, a cannabis lab doesn't test for those things. So a manufacturer technically could put that out into the market and no one would really know.
Okay.
And you know, these are all things I think regulations will be updated as things go on, things get a little more dialed in. But you know, while the cannabis industry has evolved in a very big way, it's still the Wild West in some ways.
Oh, for sure.
You know, there's no FDA oversight. There's you know, because we're operating in a federally not legal way and a state legal. So
I think there's a lot of catch up to be done.
Yep.
Because the industry was so far advanced before it got legalized that, you know, it's just now it's like trying to figure out how to catch up with these different regulations, and then some of it is just trial and error too, like oh well, that doesn't work and that makes people sick, so we got to do away with that, or you know, just things like that. So it's kind of neat to be a part of it and see how things evolve and who plays a role in that, and you know, how the law looks at it versus what we know to be true, you know, all those things. It seems to me that it'll be legal federally at, you know, probably in the next handful of years. I would hope to see that.
It's looking more positive toward that direction, I would say. Yes, for sure. I agree.
Another product I wanted to ask about, because I'm really excited about it, is the sparkling water. It is sparkling water, right? Gin and Jane?
Yes, but we actually do have some real fruit juice in those.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like a straight seltzer. There is some fruit juice in those products. But yeah, people might not know this is like our brand new line that we'll be launching, I believe, in a few weeks. It's really upcoming here. So it's a line of beverages. They're all microdose, so they all, you know, have like less than 5 milligrams of cannabinoids per beverage. I think it's 4 or 5 different SKUs that we're going to be launching. The thing that I think is really cool about these products is that we're formulating with really interesting minor cannabinoids. For example, like I think 2 of these products are formulated with Delta 8 THC. So typical THC that we feel we're usually using is called Delta 9. What Delta 8 is, it's very similar, like in a chemical way, but it binds to our cannabinoid receptors in our brain less strongly. That results in a very mellow high. Like it's about, I kind of like to think of it as THC light. It's it's just very mellow, very chill. Like you're very unlikely to produce a lot of anxiety or anything. So I think it's a great beverage for beginners, or, like people that are interested in cannabis but don't have a lot of experience with it, don't want to feel too much, or they're adverse to feeling those intoxicating effects of cannabis. But they're open to like a little bit of mind alteration. I think that's a great product. It's a really good like starter or for people that are very sensitive to THC. It's really fantastic. And then THCV is another one, a minor cannabinoid that actually tends to have a more of like an uplifting effect. It actually blocks signaling at our cannabinoid receptors partially. Which ultimately results in sort of a pep in your step, I'd say. So it's very different than other cannabinoids for the most part, where most cannabinoids are actually activating your cannabinoid receptors. THCV is blocking it. So it's cool that we have these kind of different ways that we can play with our endocannabinoid system to achieve these different effects.
So is there any, I read this and I don't know, you never know what you're reading on the internet is true. Does THCV really block your appetite too? Is it like an appetite suppressant?
There are animal studies that point to that, and there actually were some clinical trials run that also have reported this. So while it's not at the point of clinical substantiation where we can't like fully say for sure, there's a lot of evidence that definitely points toward that.
That's really cool. That's actually why I started trying it, was because I'm like, I'm trying to lose weight and eat healthier and all that, so maybe this will help me not, because sometimes you get high, you just want to eat everything in sight. So.
It also sort of makes sense logically, right? Because like the munchies, you smoke weed, munchies are very common phenomena, and that's from activating our cannabinoid receptors. Now if we're blocking that receptor, anti-munchies is almost like a logical expectation, and it is largely supported in the research.
And then the Delta 8, like on the opposite side, is supposed to be like more of a make you want to eat, I guess.
Yeah, but like, I would say not as strongly as Delta 9 though, again. Because it works almost identical to regular Delta 9 THC.
Just not as potent.
It's just not as potent. It just has less of a kick, which for some people I think it's perfect.
Because we had a couple Delta 8 carts, and they sold pretty decently, but that was kind of the reason why I brought that up, is because that's what the feedback I was getting, like, oh, if I smoke this Delta 8, I get like, I'm eating all the time, and and they were cancer patients and stuff like that, trying to want to eat more and get uplifted, so, but not get super high either. So that was just another kind of, I guess, myth I wanted to ask about, because you get, everybody has this different, like, oh, I smoke this and it makes me feel that, I've always felt like I'm just high. Like if I eat a gummy that's supposed to be for sleep, or one that's a sativa, I just feel like I'm just high no matter what. It's different for me. So it's interesting, like all these different gummies and things like that designed for certain things, but it doesn't always react for me that way. So it's hard it was really difficult for me, trial and error, trying all these things to see what really worked for me. But it was great, because I think ABX and the Care by Design gummies and all that, they really played a role in getting me off of all the pain medication that I was on. Being a veteran, I went through, I got hurt a bunch and was constantly in pain, and like I said before, I was so against edibles because I had that bad experience. Like, here's a cookie, and it was like, it killed me. So, but when I got to the point where I was in so much pain that the pain medication wasn't working anymore, it was literally just, I had to take it to not have a withdrawal. I finally just said, okay, I've hit the bottom. Now I got to I got to try it. So the fact that it was like I knew it was 10 milligrams. In less than a year, I haven't been on anything for almost 2 years now.
Oh, so cool to hear. Awesome.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I don't feel like sometimes you guys get the recognition for that because you don't, you're here, you're not facing the customers, you don't get to hear all these stories, and that's to me what makes the job so fulfilling. Knowing that like, hey, somebody using this product is no longer taking something that was ultimately it's damaging my body, and just masking the pain anyways, and then it was just a vicious cycle. And this way, I don't feel that way at all. I don't feel guilty about it. I don't feel like I got to hide it, and it doesn't affect me the way that did, mentally or physically. I'm able to still function and do my day-to-day life. So I'm thankful for guys like you, that are at the forefront of putting all these products out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too, because one, that's awesome to hear, and two, like, you're right. I don't get a lot of, like, as a manufacturer, we don't get a lot of visibility or feedback sort of on our products because the regulation is set up as a 3-tier system. We're only able to sell our products to dispensaries like you, and only dispensaries are able to sell to the general population. So there's this kind of an inherent level of disconnect between the manufacturer and the actual people that are taking it. I don't really often get to hear their direct feedback on our products. So I always appreciate getting opportunities to learn more about like how our products are helping people, what seems to be working, what's not working, things like that.
Yeah. I could probably just line people up that I've sent, sold your guys' products to, and they come back over and over again for the same thing. And speaking to the quality is that if we're out of it, they will literally wait for your guys' stuff to come back in stock and not go with somebody else. So to me, that says that you guys are doing, phenomenal work with your quality and making sure that everything is consistent across the board. Because once a user, somebody that's using those products gets what they need, they know like, okay, it's worth the wait. I'll suffer for a day or two if I have to get what I want or what I need. So I think you guys are doing a phenomenal
That's also
job.
really cool to hear. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that.
So what can you tell us, like, what are you allowed to talk about for the future?
Oh, man. My lip are tied in some really exciting things we have coming up. By the end of the year, we have a couple new form factors that I think are going to be really exciting, but I can't really speak too much to them yet. We got a lot of new gummies going to be rolling out, new flavors, new lines. We talked about the Gem and Jane line already. That's a bunch of new beverages that I think are all really going to do well in the market.
I think those are going to do
because they occupy sort of a niche spot. This kind of microdose of minor cannabinoids. It's kind of hard to find in the dispensary at large, I think. So I think that's pretty cool.
It is different to find one that's a lower dose, because most of the drinks it's either a 10 milligram or it's all the way up to like the mocktails, like 100. And there's not a whole lot of in between, so it's nice. I like the smaller form factor excuse me, too. And you said like 3 weeks.
I believe. I don't know the official launch date, but we are actively producing now, so it should be trickling down to dispensaries very soon.
Well, I'll definitely be buying them.
Awesome.
That's for sure. Well, I don't really have any more questions, but I appreciate you taking the time. I'd like to sit down again at some point in the future just to talk about like what you guys, because I know you guys are ever growing and expanding. Cannacraft is like beyond belief, what you guys are doing, and it'd be nice to like see what else has come out in the next few months or in a year or something, and then also just maybe get some of those success stories so you guys can see how you're helping the community as a whole. So I appreciate you really taking the time out to talk to me and explain a lot of this stuff.
Likewise, I appreciate you inviting me to come chat and come into Cannacraft. I can give you a little tour of the place and see a little behind the scene looks.
I wish everybody could see it, because it is definitely a sight to be seen, for sure.
For sure. So thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our chat.
Me too. Thank you.